Hello and welcome. I am Gimba Umar. Tonight, former National Security Advisor Colonel Dasuki and Revolution Now movement convener Omoyele Sowore regained freedom from DSS custody following directive from the nation's Attorney General Abubakar Malami. Condemnations trail Dasuki and Sowore's release as activists, lawyers ask federal government to free other political detainees. And a look at the road to freedom for Colonel Dasuki after 4 years in detention, and Omoyele Sowore, who has spent 5 months in custody and the place of the rule of law. An Ivorian government orders arrest of former rebel leader and candidate in next year's presidential elections, Sowore.
On business news tonight, Securities and Exchange Commission unveils new rules and amendments on derivatives trading and fixed income registration.
And on sports news tonight, Tottenham Hotspur fell with their appeal to overturn Son's red card during the 2-0 defeat to Chelsea.
From Abuja, gunmen attack former President Goodluck Jonathan's home in Otuake, killing one soldier and injuring another.
After serving over 4 years in detention without conviction, despite securing different court orders granting him release on bail, and all to no avail, the story of the former National Security Advisor, Colonel Dasuki, changed today as he becomes a free man, at least pending the outcome of his trial. Retired Colonel Dasuki's 4-year sojourn in the DSS custody finally ended today on the orders of the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, who said the directive should be carried out in compliance with the court order. Colonel Dasuki left the DSS office late this evening and was shielded from everyone, including journalists who had been waiting to see the face of the new free man. The journalists were denied access to the 2 SUV cars that brought him and drove straight into his house in Abuja. Mr. Dasuki is being prosecuted for alleged corruption while he was in office as NSA and possession of firearms. The Attorney General had said in a statement this morning that whilst the Federal High Court has exercised its discretion in granting bail to the defendant in respect of the charges against him, he is not unmindful of the rights of the complainant and prosecution to appeal or further challenge the grant of bail by the courts having regards to extant legal provisions, particularly Section 169 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015. The Attorney General also warned the defendants to observe the terms of their bail and refrain from engaging in any act that is inimical to public peace and national security, as well as their ongoing trial, which according to him will run its course in accordance with the laws of the land. Well, that's also visuals that you're looking at from earlier today, as the convener of the #Revolution Now movement, of course, Omoyele Sowore, moments of joy for him, and obviously going to be a jolly good Christmas for himself and his family as he also leaves the DSS custody today, following the same directive by the Attorney General of the Federation that the court ordered granting him bail must be obeyed. Mr. Sowore was accosted by journalists who were eager to have him speak on the process leading to his release. But the obviously excited Sowore only seized the moment to give all the credit to his supporters.
Revolution now. We'll let you guys into a time to talk to the media, okay? Don't worry. Just, the only thing is to thank Nigerians. They made this happen, and they should not relent. Nobody can take the people who are deserving for granted. Merry Christmas to Nigeria.
Meanwhile, reactions are already trailing the release of Mr. Sowore and retired Colonel Sambo Dasuki. First to comment is Mr. Sowore's lawyer, who said in a statement that the federal government should release other political detainees and criminal suspects in line with valid and subsistent orders of courts. Mr. Falana states specifically that the federal government should liaise with the Kaduna State government to withdraw the charges filed against Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki and his wife, Zainat El-Zakzaki, who have also been detained since December 14, 2015. Mr. Falana's statement reads in part, by ordering the release of Colonel Sambo Dasuki pursuant to orders of court, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami San, has jettisoned the reactionary position that national security takes precedence over the rule of law. Since the Buhari administration has now embraced the rule of law, Mr. Malami should ensure that the valid and subsistent orders of all courts are obeyed in accordance with Section 287 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Falana insists that the El-Zakzaki case should be given a similar treatment as that of Dasuki and Sowore. It's been a long journey for these two men. While Colonel Sambo Dasuki has been in detention for 4 years, Omoyele Sowore has been in detention for about 5 months. In this next report, our correspondent Amaka Okafo looks at the road to freedom for both men.
It's been a long walk to freedom, but temporarily for the immediate past National Security Advisor, retired Colonel Sambo Dasuki, who has been in the detention of the Department of State Services. Dasuki, who was first charged with illegal possession of firearms, was granted bail by retired Justice Adeniyi Ademola on self-recognizance on August 30, 2015, following no objection from the then prosecutor, Mr. Muhammad Diri. However, after a raid of his premises by the DSS, Colonel Dasuki was arrested and charged with diversion of 2.1 billion naira arms fund and was subsequently granted bail on the 18th of December 2015 by Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf of an FCT High Court in Maitama in the sum of 250 million naira and a surety who must own a landed property in the Federal Capital Territory. Colonel Dasuki met his bail conditions on the 29th of December 2015, and no sooner had he stepped out of the Kuje prisons where he was remanded, he was again picked up by the Department of State Services for undisclosed reasons. And on the 4th of October 2016, the ECOWAS court ordered the federal government to release Mr. Dasuki and awarded him damages of 15 million naira for his illegal detention. On January 24, 2017, Justice Baba Yusuf reaffirmed the bail of Colonel Sambo Dasuki on the grounds that he was entitled to it and haven't been admitted to bail since 2015, but this was not obeyed by the federal government. And when the case of illegal possession of firearms was transferred to Justice Ahmed Mohammed of the Federal High Court following the retirement of Justice Ademola, the judge on the 5th of April 2017 reaffirmed Dasuki's bail, which again was not obeyed by the federal government. Colonel Dasuki continued to fight for his freedom as he approached Justice Ijoma Ojukwu for the enforcement of his fundamental rights. And in a ruling on 2nd July 2018, Justice Ojukwu, who described Dasuki's continuous detention as an aberration of the rule of law, granted him bail in the sum of 2 million naira and 2 sureties. And while Colonel Dasuki continued to remain in the custody of the DSS, he was on August 5, 2019, joined by another detainee, the convener of the Revolution Now protest, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, who was also granted bail by both Justice Taiwo and Ijoma Ojukwu of the Federal High Court, an order the DSS did not comply with. However, after a 24-hour ultimatum by Justice Ijoma Ojukwu, the DSS released Mr. Sowore on the 5th of December 2019, only to rearrest him within the court premises on the 6th of December 2019. However, in a surprising move, the federal government ordered the release of both Colonel Dasuki and Mr. Sowore. The Attorney General who gave the directive says the federal government is not unmindful of its right of appeal to the bail orders, but having reviewed the cases, it has decided to comply with the court order while exploring its right of appeal. Lawyer to Colonel Dasuki has this to say about the release order.
Whether it is 5 years, 10 years, or 1 day, most important thing is going to gain his freedom. And we hold no grudge against anybody, for nothing will happen except with the leave of Allah.
And when asked what the future holds for his client,
he has no choice, except that he has even stayed in the prison or in detention more than the number of years for some of the alleged offenses. So, but we thank God for everything.
it is expected that the federal government will match words with action by releasing other detainees who have met their bail conditions pending the determination of the cases against them. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
We're now being joined on the news at 10 by Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria, to look at the release of Colonel Sambo Dasuki and Mr. Omoyele Sowore from detention. Many thanks indeed for joining us on the news at 10 on a day like this one and on this very important subject as well. First of all, as a lawyer, how do you feel about the developments of today?
Well, Gimba, thank you. Let me first and foremost say that belated as the obedience to the orders of court is, I congratulate us and Nigerians for being consistently consistent in demanding obedience to court orders. I have always said, and I will say, that any government that decides to ignore court orders does so at its own peril, because obedience to court order is a sine qua non for peace and stability of any country. And so where government chose to treat court orders with levity, it will be unlawful and for any such government to expect obedience from its citizens. So government must lead by example. So I congratulate us and Nigerians for this triumph of obedience to court orders. And let me correct an impression. I don't think it was the federal government that ordered for the release of these people. Court had ordered that they be released. So the duty that the government owes is the duty of obedience.
If I may comment again, my apologies. If I may just comment very quickly, just so I can get as much as possible from you. Why do you think the government decided to take this line of action now, after pressures from several quarters?
Because government was feeling too embarrassed. Government was, and he put himself in an embarrassing situation. Because once there is an order of court, whether you like it or not, whether that order is null and void, you have a duty to obey it until that order is set aside by higher authority. And I think that the Attorney General of the Federation owed Nigerian explanations why it took very long time for this obedience to come belatedly as it has come. But government has to bow to pressures both from within and outside this country, so that they will have to show the world that indeed they are not what they perceive them to be, because you can see that even some Nigerians were taken to the street to demand obedience for these people to be released. And let me say that it is because these people are high-profile political prisoners, so to say, that many people are demanding. There are many orders of courts that are yet to be obeyed in terms of judgment debts that people have got against government and government agencies. I will call upon the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for a wholesale obedience to court orders. There is no substitute for obedience to court order. Where the rule of law is undermined, then the rule of anarchy will prevail. Tyranny becomes the order of the day, and we cannot afford to be ruled by totalitarianism or tyranny. in this country, because
I'm afraid that we have
freedom
to
is a
go
very
now.
priceless asset.
I most sincerely thank you so much indeed. I'm afraid that we're running out of time. But of course, we must thank you for talking to us on the News at 10, Mr. Jibrin Okutepa, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Many thanks indeed. In part two, after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari raised the riot act to terrorists, bandits and other criminal elements at Christmas, asked them to surrender or face the wrath of security agencies. That's in a moment. Join us again.